Is this the end of the clown killifish breeding project? Or is it a whole new beginning? Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the third and final installment in the three-part series that I've done on the clown killifish breeding project. It's February 3rd, and as you can see, some little colorless fry as well as adolescents. If you just happened to stumble upon my channel and was looking up breeding clown killifish, I strongly recommend you go back and watch part 1 and part 2 of this three-part series. So in order to get the best reminders of any videos that I post, you can subscribe, and then while you're at it, hit the like for this video and share the video out to your friends. Join me in the journey as we learn about not only clown killifish breeding, but also my favorite shrimp. So I'm still finding some colorless fry like this one shown right here, which tells me that they're still spawning. We'll talk about where maybe they're coming from a little bit later. When I first set up this project, all of the fry were tiny, and they were popping up like crazy. And this started back in July from this ad right here. So in part 1, we went over the fact that this started off in July with the first spawn that I noticed. Then I took the first set of male and female from that spawn for this project here. We discussed the water parameters and what it was in, the 10-gallon tank, the plants that were in it, substrate, and all of the babies are colorless. Well, here we are, fast forwarded all the way to February 21st, and we're still finding colorless babies. And here's one that's probably about 10 to 14 days old. That one's probably about 7 days old. But here we are, many weeks later, many months later, and they're still fry with no color, some with a little bit of color. Of course, there's Dad. And look right there behind him. There's one with no color. This one here is probably about 3 weeks old, maybe 4 weeks old. And there's one with no color up on the right-hand side. So there's so many different levels or age groups. Here's one of the oldest ones that on the very first video was no color baby fry. Well, what are the water parameters? Water parameters are basically the same as what they were in the first video. I have them listed there for you. And all I really do is keep the water topped off. Well, what do you mean by just keeping the water topped off? How many water changes have I done so far? Well, I haven't done any, honestly. All I've done is keep the water levels every couple of days. I add water straight from the RO unit and make sure that there's enough room for the fry to get around up there and get to the Bacter AE and the Hikari first bites. You know, I had questions pulling the parents originally in the first part. I went through a little bit of a project of trying to maybe pull some of the babies, thinking they were going to get eaten, and that project failed. And I talked about just keeping it simple. That's something that I always got to remind myself of, you know, because it's a general rule of thumb that seems to be working, is keep it simple. If you notice here, there's still so many of these baby fries, still February 21st, but there's fry everywhere. Adolescent, some with color, some with no color, 3 weeks, 4 weeks old, so many different ones. So let's take a little break from staring at the aquarium and let's look out backyard. So this is February 23rd. And I can definitely tell you this is 100% certified, keeping it shrimple approved. This method of this tank and the results from breeding these clown killifish just by topping off the water using Bacter AE and some Hikari first bites, the proof is in the pudding. The results are in, folks. I can definitely say that without chemicals, without adding anything as far as methylene blue, peat moss, or any of that stuff, I just kept it shrimple. You know, fluvole stratum, RO water, a little bit of remineralizer, keep the TDS between 60 and 90, and keep it topped off with lots of plants and foliage for the fry to hide in. And it seems to be working. Go back and watch part 1 and part 2. There's some amazing footage that shows the growth and the progress all the way from colorless to the next level where they're about 4 weeks old, to the next level from part 2 to part 3 where we have just a variety of every different age group and generations that you could think of. That's the really cool part too, is that I'm still seeing colorless fry. The largest fry is coloring up really awesome. There's fry with colors that are 3 to 4 weeks old in part 2 that are now almost full grown in this video. And then, what do we have going on here? Does this behavior seem familiar? Well, honestly, it kind of does. It looks like they're kind of paired up and they're kind of practicing to be adults. Who knows? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think, because this is interesting behavior to find it barely on the 23rd of February that the group of fry that started off in the beginning of the year as colorless fry, it looks like they're already trying to act like adults. Let me know what you think about that. How many generations of fry do we have? Well, that's a whole nother topic. And at this point, I'd have to say as many weeks since I've been documenting it on video since the beginning of the year, I would have to say that you're probably looking at about at least 12 to 13, maybe even 14 different batches of fish. Are they at the age to where they could already start dropping eggs? February 27th, I'm still finding colorless fry. This one right here looks like it's about 10 to 14 days old. Starting to get a pretty good handle on the colors and about how old they are based on the colors. And this one looks about 10 to 14 days old. But here we go again. Colorless fry floating around on the top. Then I start noticing there's 2 or 3 of them. And start taking a closer look and saying, what do we got going on here? I mean, all of these brand new fry that are within a week old, maybe a couple days. And then of course you see the big ones or bigger ones that are with the girth of those are at least 8 weeks old. So there's again, pretty successful all the way from these colorless fry like this to the bigger ones that are at least 2 to 3 months old. And as far as generations go, there's too many to count, honestly. At some point, some will be pulled and put into a grow out tank. I'm getting all of that prepared. But why mess with what's working? So I haven't really moved anything as far as trying to get them out. Anything that I've taken out and put it off to the side hasn't really worked out. So I've just been keeping them in the tank and leaving them alone. And that seems to be working the best. Again, keeping it shrimple. That works totally. I am 100% a believer in the keeping it shrimple method, especially in this scenario. No spawning moths, no chemicals, no peat moss, anything of that nature. Nothing fancy. Just making sure the water is clean, and just doing a top off has been suitable. And I've had no issues, obviously. So what's the next steps? I mean, where do we go from here? Well, like I said, I've already got some other tanks that I'm starting to get ready. It's going to be hard to duplicate what I got going on in here, but I'm going to try, because I'd love to have a whole nother tank doing the same thing as this one. There's just so many fry. And yes, there's snails in there. I got to get rid of them. But this is February 28th, and they're thriving. They're enjoying the Bacter AE and the Hikari first bites, and everybody seems to be healthy, thriving together. Some of these shots are just awesome. It's so cool to get all this video. Throughout all 3 of the installments, we've seen tremendous progress from clear, firstborn fries to what we're looking at now of just a mixture of adolescents. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. I've learned a lot about the clown killifish and how to find them. The fry have been so hard to find, but hopefully you've learned with me as we've learned to identify them and see them moving around, and I've learned to get better footage so that we can see them. So, is this the end of this project? Well, I don't think I can end this project with the success that I'm having. So, it's not really the end of the project, just an entirely new beginning.